My name is Tsekiso Ranqhai. I'm a PhD student doing or investigating seed systems that smallholder farmers use in Lesotho. My study is basically based on two study sites, contrasting and comparing the two, one in the lowlands of Lesotho and the other one in the highlands. Basically trying to see how the interventions or development interventions, mostly by government and sometimes by NGOs, affecting the choices that smallholder farmers are making in their seed systems. My main interest that drew me to this research was basically food production in general. I grew up in a rural area. Obviously, you grew up understanding or seeing the challenges that farmers go through in terms of their production of food, where they get their seed, how they're able to sustain their family beyond when they don't have employment and when they have employment. I kind of got linked with Prof. Weinberg, and so she kind of guided me to one of her specialties, which is seeds. I started my career in chemistry, undergrad, and environmental science, but I kind of opted for the chemistry route when I went for postgrad honors and masters. Then after my master's, I worked for a corporate company, an FMCG company. Within 2 years of that, I was like, this is not really my thing. At that time, I was hoping to start a farming business in Lesotho. Unfortunately, that fell face first because I was not able to get any land. 2015, I came back to Cape Town. Originally, again, still on a PhD in chemistry. I did that for I think 3 years, and I was getting really frustrated. At that point, I think there were discussions in campus about decolonizing sort of research and science. So there was a talk where Leslie Green was invited. So she kind of presented this work that she was doing with Prof. Gammon, who was actually my supervisor at that time, on indigenous seeds, not indigenous plants actually, and their uses, and the different perspectives that come from a scientist investigating them and a social scientist. So she kind of introduced me to the environmental humanities course and said, if I'm interested, I can sign up for it. That's actually how I made the switch. And also just opened up my understanding of what actually agriculture is, as opposed to just a narrow, I just want to produce enough food. Even just the developing of scholarship itself, even in my own research, that sometimes because there's no alternative pursuits of why particular farmers groupings are doing or pursuing or persisting with particular practices, there's often a very naive assumption of why they're doing it, like they're just ignorant or they lack knowledge, whereas actually they may be really making rational choices based on their own livelihoods and why this particular way that is supposed to be the correct way is not working for them. So I feel like that scholarship makes it respectable in the sort of decision makers of the world. When those perspectives come, at least from a very well structured scholarly work, I feel like it would be more convincing, more useful, or more helpful to actually make them realize that we may be missing certain aspects of why people persist with this way of agriculture that we think is just antiquated, or it definitely is pre-modern and all of that stuff. It's been an interesting journey for me to actually realize, especially coming from that scientific background, because most of the time when we look at how to improve things from a technological perspective, we just look at it as an object. What are the parameters that we can improve in seed? How does it produce more? What amount of water does it need to produce more? But then you realize that there's a whole social world that is tied to that you're not even paying any attention to. And so when you read most of the social scientists' work, even in anthropology, in philosophy, you find that the way someone adopts or engages with a particular practice of farming, it has something to do with the technology, but not everything to do with the technology. A major sort of contrast that I found, where the farmers in the lowlands have mostly adopted the industrial hybrid seeds, mostly using tractors and implements to farm. Whereas in the highlands, people are still using their ox-drawn plows. Reasons why this is the only, or at least the most viable option for those farmers, why they persist with it despite all these insistences that, no, you need to improve your agriculture in this way, you need to improve, adopt these seeds. Those for me were the insights that were very interesting to me to see, like, you can really bring a technology that is completely inappropriate for a particular place just because you think this is the greatest modern technology. So one of the main differences is that the highlands are much cooler and they have a much shorter season. Because of that climatic sort of condition that prevails in that region, only crops that have specifically been adopted through like long periods of time I've actually developed an ability to successfully produce a crop on a yearly basis, whereas the crops that are supposed to be improved fail regularly. One of the major questions I was asking when they say, because industrial seeds are labeled as improved, but there are certain conditions where they actually fail dismally to meet even the basic conditions that exist, whereas traditional seeds have been thriving in those regions.